The Ottoman Empire started in tents, not palaces. By the end of this video, you will learn the Ottomans' earliest ancestry, their nomadic beginnings in the Central Asian steppes, how and when they converted to Islam, the two historical wars that changed the course of history in this region, and how the Ottomans settled in Asia Minor or Anatolia. So, historians can trace the Ottomans' ancestry back to the Oghuz clan. Who were the Oghuz clan? They were nomadic peoples, and they were living in the Central Asian steppes. From this map that I'm attaching, you can see they were to the west of China, but before the Middle East. These are called the Asian steppes. So this covers the Aral Sea, Lake Baikal, the Altai Mountains. It's quite a wide area. And the period that I'm referring to is between the 8th to the 10th century AD. Now, the Oghuz clan were not a single tribe. They were a clan, and they were made up of many Turkic tribes, all coming together under the identity of Oghuz. Who were these Oghuz? Who made up the Oghuz clan? They were nomadic and they were semi-nomadic. They were pastoral nomads. They lived in tribes, they were clans, and they were led by beys. This was the name they gave their leaders. What did they do? They kept horses. Horses had a significant role in their life. They kept horses, they were caring for sheep, goats, and they lived in tents. And often the tents were set up in a circular fashion. Not only were they nomads, they were nomadic warriors. So there was warring and plundering. From a religious point of view, it was spiritual. They had spiritual shamanic beliefs. They believed in a sky god, Tengri, and with nature and the spirits around them. So these nomadic Oghuz, between the 9th and the 11th century, they are moving in a westwardly direction. Why are they moving? They're moving to pastures, they're looking for land, but they're also being pushed. You have the Mongol hordes in the east causing problems to villagers and to the nomads. So they're moving for safety, some for land. And where are they going? They are going towards the Middle East. They're passing through the Middle East, and as they pass through the Middle East, it's when they're introduced to Islam, and they convert in large numbers. Who's converting these nomads? They're Muslim missionaries, holy men, and wandering preachers, and more importantly, Sufi dervishes. And the key word is wandering holy men, because these tribes are nomadic, they are in tents, they have horses, they move. They're a very mobile civilization. And it needed these wandering preachers to travel with these tribes to be actually able to convert them. And they're living in the frontier areas, so it's not a formal Islam, not a scholarly Islam they receive. It's more of a Sufi Islam. And the Sufi dervishes are able to mix Sufi Islam with the steppe traditions, the traditions that these nomads already possessed. And what this allows is that these nomadic peoples can continue with some of their customs. Their Islam is a blend of Islam, Sunni Islam, and their old customs. And also, because they're warriors, it's a warrior-friendly Islam. The warrior-friendly Islam matched their tribal warring. So this Sunni Islam was from the Sufi order of Sunni Islam. What is Sufism? Sufism is mystical Islam, and it emphasizes the personal experience of God. And what these travelers could do was they could mix. They traveled with these nomads. But then later these Sufis are building tekke, dervish lodges. So these are buildings in the frontier. And these buildings come to play a very important part, both in the conversion and with Islam in general, with these nomads. These tekke lodges become religious centres. They're a place of sanctuary in the frontier, this wild frontier areas. They're a place of healing, prayers. Sometimes they function as a soup kitchen, sometimes a place to heal the sick, and it's also a place for travellers where they can rest. But it's also a place of Islamic conversion and recruitment to Gaza. So these lodges are in the frontier areas, and quite often they were the first building to be built in these rural areas, and villages would often build around these tekke lodges. And the lodges had the function of making the frontier more socially stable. So these Sufi dervishes are converting these nomads to Islam, but they're also recruiting Gaza warriors. What is a Gaza warrior? A Gaza warrior or a Gaza is a person who is fighting for Islam, fighting and spreading Islam. It's religious warfare. That is Gaza. So some of these Sufi dervishes were actually warriors themselves. They were joining the Muslim armies, but they were also recruiting for Gaza. So you have these Aus clan, these nomads being converted. They are now Islamic tribes. They now have Islam, they have a religious identity, and with Gaza, they have a religious mission. Aus clan plus Islam plus living in the frontier gives us the Turkomans. So who are the Turkomans? The Turkomans are still nomads. They are nomads and they're Ghazi fighters. And for them, for the Turkomans, Gaza was a way of life. They had a warrior lifestyle. They were nomadic. They were still keeping their animals, but they're also raiding. They mixed religion with raiding. So the Turkomans, still nomadic, they're still living in their tents, they're still in tribes, they're still setting up in circular camps. And because they're nomadic, it makes them highly mobile. They're moving around quickly, and they are moving. They're moving constantly in the westwardly direction towards Christian lands. So, Turkomans, again, they're still pastoral nomads. They move seasonally to different pastures. They have winter pastures and their summer pastures. They keep their horses. The horses are essential for them. They're also keeping sheep and goats and animals. And horses and horse riding is essential. Having horse riding skills or skills on a horse with weaponry and archery are essential. And they're even more important to their leaders, their beys. Their leaders are still called beys, and these leaders have to be very skilled, strong, and brave. And what about justice? How does justice work? Because it's an informal society, it's settled. Justice is settled by the elders. And how are they living? How are they trading? They're trading wool and animal hides. They're raiding and they're plundering. And the booty they collect is also an economic activity for them. What are these Turkomans eating? They eat yogurt, they drink ayran, which is a watered down yogurt type drink. They eat dried meat, flatbread, and boiled grains. So from these Turkomans, these converted nomads to Turkomans, we get the Great Seljuk Empire. And this is in the Middle East as we know it today. And this is the first Aus Empire. These are the ancestors. These are descendants of the Aus clan. And it's the first empire. It lasts about 200 years. They're ethnically Turkoman. And the Great Seljuk Empire is a Sunni Islamic state. It covers a very large geographical area. For today, we have Iran, Iraq, Syria, Central Asia, and parts of Anatolia. This was the Great Seljuk Empire, and they were ruling the heart of the Islamic world. It was a very structured and urban empire, and it was classical Islam. You had the Caliph, who was the religious leader, and you had the Seljuk Sultan, who was the real ruler. Culturally, it was Persian. They had a bureaucracy, they collected taxes, and they had Islamic courts. So they were very structured. They were urban and structured and very traditional Sunni Islam. Meanwhile, you have Turkoman nomads who are not part of this structure, that weren't interested in being part of the Seljuk Empire. They were still nomadic and still living in tribes, and they were still heading towards the west. So what of this general geographical area? So as we have this westward movement, our tribes are getting close to Christian lands. We have the Byzantine Empire now in the west. You have the Byzantines who are to the west of Anatolia, in particular Constantinople. And these Byzantines are looking to the eastern frontier, and they're getting scared. You have a mass of Turkoman Muslims, these Ghazi warriors who are pressing towards them, pressing against their frontiers, and they're plundering. The Byzantines are looking and they're feeling threatened, and they feel they have to reassert control on their eastern borders. And it's Byzantine Emperor Diogenes who decides to attack the Seljuks. And on the Seljuk side, you have Alparslan defending the Seljuk Empire. The result of this is the Battle of Manzikert, Malazgirt as we say in Turkish, and this battle happened in 1071, and on the map I will show you where the battle occurred. This battle turned into one of the most important events in Anatolia and the Middle East. Why? Diogenes, the Byzantine emperor, is defeated. He's taken prisoner, and the Seljuks, between them and Diogenes, agree a treaty and some agreements. They treat him respectfully. He's released. He returns to Constantinople. There he is met with a huge uproar. The Byzantines can't believe they lost. There's a civil war. Diogenes is killed, and the treaty with the Seljuks is revoked. The Seljuks, however, do not destroy Byzantine. They actually leave it. What it means is that now these eastern borders are undefended. The Byzantines can no longer defend it. There's a civil war going on in Constantinople. So these undefended territories are totally open, and there is a flood of Turkoman nomads that can quite happily and easily move through the eastern border, and they move into central and as far as western Anatolia. They're getting even closer now to Christian Byzantine lands. Other significant development is the Turkification of Anatolia. These Turkomans are now going in, they're setting up towns and villages, they're talking Turkish, they're taking over the rural areas, which they do quite easily. The urban areas hold their Byzantine character for a bit longer. What else are these Turkomans doing? They're continuing their nomadic ways. They're still nomads on their horses, they're Ghazi warriors. Their nomadic lifestyle continues. They're living in tents, they're in clans, and their leaders are still called beys. So no change there. What else are these Gaza warriors doing? They are spreading Islam, and they're continuing to plunder. But what else is happening is that moving into Anatolian Christian lands, these Turkomans are mixing with Christians. There's more mixing going on. A significant new empire is created now in Anatolia, and it's called the Seljuks of Rum. They're still Seljuk, they're still Turkoman ethnically, but they call themselves Rum because they're in Roman land, or what used to be Roman land, Asia Minor, Anatolia. The Seljuks of Rum, they rule from about the 10th to the 10th century to 1300s, again 200 years. Who are the Seljuks of Rum? They're Turkoman Muslims, but they're urban. And again, they have a structured empire. Theirs is an administration, a bureaucratic, administrative. They have their own army, they collect taxes, they trade, and their religion is the Sufi order. The Turkoman nomads, not everybody wants to belong to this structured Seljuks of Rum. They'll coordinate with them, they'll war with them, and they'll support them. But otherwise, the Turkoman nomads are unruly, and they can be rebellious. And the Seljuks of Rum do feel threatened by these Turkoman nomads. They're afraid of rebellion. And what do? They prefer to push the Turkoman nomads further along the frontiers, further along what they call marcher frontier lands. So this is the northwest of Anatolia. So you have the Mongols in the east and the Seljuks constantly pushing these Turkoman nomads. And these nomads they maintain their same lifestyle, the traditional lifestyle, nomadic, intense, keeping flocks, and they have their leaders. But in the east, something is about to change. The Mongols attack the Seljuk Empire. This structured Islamic empire that ruled for 200 years is now shattered. The Mongols win, and the Seljuk Empire is no more. The Mongol Ilkhanids are now victorious. They rule this territory, Central Asia and the Middle East, and the Seljuks now become vassals. The Seljuk Sultan is the vassal to the Ilkhanid Mongols. What do the Mongols do? They're brutal. They steeply increase taxes, they take soldiers for their own campaigns, and they require heavy tribute payments from the Seljuks. The Seljuks are broken, and when they break, the power in this region breaks. There is a power vacuum. The power shifts now to the Turkoman nomads. They are no longer controlled by the Seljuks, and the Turkoman nomads decide to set up, or they become more independent, and they set up their own beylik. Beylik was the name of their leaders, beys, and they have their own little regions they carve up in Anatolia. And what happens to the Seljuk lands? The cities are in decline. There are warlords and armed bandits in the rural areas, and rule and order break down. And this breakdown of rule and order allows these Turkoman beyliks to become independent and rule themselves. One little beylik in Suud to the west, it's the beylik that's the furthest to the west in Anatolia. Suud is given to Ertuğrul. The history is a bit obscure. Nomads didn't really write their history. So we're not fully sure how he managed to receive Suud, but it's believed it was a reward from the Seljuk Empire. So Ertuğrul has his beylik. He's one of these independent beyliks, and he's in Suud. So he's the furthest to the west of all the Anatolian beyliks. He's on the borders. He's touching distance to Christian Byzantine lands. So Ertuğrul, he is also a nomad. He is a steppe warrior. He has continued the Turkic tradition of nomadic lifestyle. He has a strong Ghazi ideology. Ertuğrul, his son Osman, is actually the one that enters the historical stage. It's Osman and his son Orhan, Ertuğrul's son and grandson, who actually make the biggest impact. So fortunately for Suud, they are the furthest distance from the Mongol hordes, so they are safe. They're the furthest west, and they're the closest to Byzantine Christian towns. At this time, the Byzantine towns and villages are weak. They are not very defended, and Osman is very successful raiding and plundering and taking over these villages. And Osman is not only a good warrior, he's also very intelligent, and he does things very differently. He doesn't follow the pattern of the other Anatolian beyliks where they are attacking Muslim to Muslim. He's looking to the Christians. He's always got his eye on Christian lands, but he also works with the Christians. He coordinates and he cooperates with them, and that's part of his success. As he gets more and more successful, he's attracting more Ghazi warriors, and more nomads are flocking and they're following his banner. And it is Osman and Orhan who enter the historical stage. It's Osman, his success, and his name Osmanlılar, the followers of Osman, or Ottomans, that created the Ottoman Beylik, the Osmanlı Beylik, and it's Osman and Orhan and their success and the foundations they lay for not only the Ottoman Beylik, but for the Ottoman Empire that follows. And this empire, as we know, lasted 600 years. So let's summarize. We have the Oghuz tribes in the Central Asian steppes. They're nomads. These nomads moved towards the west, passing through the Middle East. They're converted to Islam. Their conversion creates Turkoman, Muslim, Ghazi warriors, and they have their religious and economic objectives. Next, you have the Turkomans that created the Great Seljuk Empire, and it's the Seljuks and the Byzantine clash in Manzikert in 1071 that opened the gates for the Turkomans, the converted Muslim Turkomans that make their way into Anatolia. This opened Anatolia to Turkification. Everything was going well until the Mongols from the east smashed the Seljuk Empire with the Battle of Kusadar in 1243. The collapse of the Seljuk created the power vacuum that the Turkoman beyliks could go in and create their own little mini state, beylik, statelets. And it's the Ottomans who are one of these independent beyliks that do things very differently. So, going back, you have the Oghuz clan, you have the Turkomans, and then you have the Ottomans. All three stages are nomadic, tent-dwelling tribes who live a life that's very mobile. So what happens next in Suit? If you're interested, click subscribe to find out.